Hello and welcome to another one of our Humblewood to Create a live streams. I'm joined today by Serena Langton, and we're going to be chatting all about the Amaranthine, the gods of Humblewood. So, Serena, thank you very much for joining us. Can you tell our audience here a little bit about yourself?
Um, Hello, everyone. I'm Serena. I've been playing role-playing games since high school. Started off in Dungeons and Dragons, obviously, and then I veered off the path and have traveled many worlds and many places across time. Um, and quickly, I migrated to becoming the sort of forever dungeon master in all sorts of settings, lots of different game systems. And then I eventually started developing my own game systems and my own adventures and that sort of thing, LARPs and mega games and all sorts of other strange hybrid things along the way. And eventually, people started to want me to write things for them, and here I am.
Yes, we definitely wanted you to come and write some stuff for us, specifically the Amaranthine. So I think most people watching will probably be familiar with the concept of the Amaranthine, these kind of deities that exist in Humblewood, the pantheon, as it were. Like, can you tell us a little bit about like the new Amaranthine that you wrote for Humblewood too?
Right, yeah. So the Amaranthine I find so interesting in Humblewood because they have a very distinctive feel from other deities in other books. You really get the sense that these are sort of almost like primordial or like spiritual forces
Hmm.
in the world, not necessarily things that you can just reach out and touch per se, or things that aren't necessarily as interested in things worshiping them.
Hmm.
Just more, this is what I am, this is what
Hmm.
I do, this is the essence of this particular domain within the world as the humble folks see them. And yeah, it was really interesting to try and add to that pantheon of spirits things that are new and different, but still like overlap on those elements of nature. And so it was a lot of fun, especially finding amaranthines for the new folk that are being introduced in the book. Uh, I I particularly liked. I am a cat person, so I particularly liked doing some of the more feline amaranthine in there. And there's a wonderful pair of amaranthine, the Kaluz and Erasutha, sisters uh, of the sun and the moon, represented by felines, that I had a lot of fun with, having an interesting dynamic, because so often you see in pantheons these like opposing forces, and it's always sort of a good evil rah rah, a fight, but having it be sisters with a more of a relationship rather than just a out and out rivalry or opposition, I thought was very fitting given the way that the other amaranthines before uh, sort of interact with the world. And I thought that that relationship would be an interesting thing for people to explore within their games.
Hmm.
Wow, I only got through one there. We'll be here 2 hours if I take that long on all of them. But
No, I'm sure people will be excited to hear about the new Amaranthine. We're because one thing that people should kind of know that is that we're not going to be sharing directly the text from the book in our playtest because it's not really a playtest. We're not really testing out the mechanics of the Amaranthine. That's not something we need to do. So we can hear like talk about it for sure, and we want to kind of dig in a little bit into the part of the world that I think a lot of people are very interested in. I know definitely when I read Humblewood 1, the Amaranthine section was like one of my favorite parts to read. And I wanted to ask, like, what was your history with Humblewood before coming on to the project?
uh, I mean, I know a few people at Hit Point Press that I met from various games through the years, and then Humblewood sort of hit. It was a huge splash. I don't know anyone who didn't hear about Humblewood within my circles anyway. And I found it was a great tool for me, actually, because at that time I knew so many parents who were big role players and wanted to involve their kids, but they found straight Dungeons and Dragons just a little too intense. And not that Humblewood can't be intense; it certainly can be. But you put a little owl knight on the cover and whatnot, and you play it to the family side, and it becomes just this wonderful introduction into role playing for younger ages, I find. And so that was really how I got introduced to it. Is I was using it as sort of a passport for people to come into the world of role playing.
Yeah, that's definitely something we want to like people to have within the setting. The two sides of like you can play this for kids. Maybe there's a little bit less darkness, a little bit less kind of strife, or you can kind of dig into the really deeper themes. And I feel like in the writing that you've done for the Amaranthine, you've like got this really nice balance between those things, because it has this mystical kind of like wide open sense, but also there is that kind of cozy like you can imagine a character like having some kind of relationship with these beings and like finding some strength in their kind of like maybe not worship, but like association with the Amaranthine. One of the things I really liked that you added was the kind of phrases that people might associate with saying with these with the Amaranthine. How did you sort of come to decide to add those to the book?
Well, that really comes from just experience at the table, like running and playing almost all the time. There's at least a few, or sometimes the entire table is following some sort of faith. That's a thing that people want to bring to their characters, that they have this belief, and role playing, that means something to them. But then in the particular moments when they're calling on their faith, or they're casting a spell, or making a prayer or whatnot, there isn't immediately something there for them to grab onto. And for more creative players, of course, always come up with something, but those people are always going to come up with something because that's their nature. But for the people who that doesn't come to immediately, it's nice to have the bedrock of like, this is a saying that the people who share this belief call upon in their time of need. And just to be able to shout something, or to say something in that dramatic moment that reminds everyone that you are one of Titan's followers, or you're following Ranzang, it really brings something to it. So I want to add that in there, because it's such a small thing, but it can bring so much to a table.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that when I was reading through. And like I want to kind of ask about we got some great questions from our patrons, and like I got one from Mike that was what are some good tips for using religion in TTRPGs, like kind of expanding on what you just described, like having like players who want to interact with religion. How do you go about like making sure there's space at the table for that kind of play?
I mean, in other settings, in other games, so often I feel like people come to the decision that the way to deal with that is to like bring the gods in, and like literally talk to the god, or go to their celestial realm or whatnot, and just have them be directly giving the quests out, or whatnot. And that's a great move. It's very dramatic, and it brings stuff to the table. But I don't think that's the thing I would do tip-wise with the Amaranthines. Is I feel like the Amaranthines really represent a philosophy and a belief. And the way to bring that to the table is to find the argument between the interpretations of what does it mean to be enduring, What does it mean to be strong? So many of the Amaranthines have like a particular trait or way of viewing things that could really get salty depending on how you interpret it. So it's about finding a situation that brings that into play. How are we going to deal with this situation? Well, obviously we have to be strong here. But does that mean breaking things down? Does that mean destroying things? Does that mean we have to build it up? It's the way that the NPCs and the characters can bring that belief. If you give them an excuse to have a rant or to take a stand, you have to give them those options to like show it. That was a bit of a ramble there, but
no, that was great.
It was inspiring.
Yeah, fantastic.
I hope it helped, Mike.
And then, talking about like tension and things like that, we got another question from Paul over on the Patreon. So Paul wants to know, are there any notable evil aligned Amaranthine aside from Kren? So Kren, obviously in book 1, is the kind of trickster Amaranthine, the Amaranthine of the Vulpin, and she's like I'm a huge fan of Kren. I think she's great, and justice for Kren. And so I don't think she's that evil. I mean, she's kind of evil, but she's like she's a fun evil. But like of the new Amaranthine, are there any that you feel are kind of can maybe be used as in a more antagonistic role?
Oh, definitely. I am also a big fan of Kren, and I don't necessarily think of Kren as evil either.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people won't think that Gebo, the Reveler, is evil either, but I think a lot of people will for very good reason. And they are sort of my addition to the antagonistic side of the Amaranthines. And Gebo the Reveler is this marvelous lizard type of Amaranthine who really, more than embodying evil, I think he embodies chaos and desire. And it's this eternal hunger for more and more, and the more extreme an experience or an emotion or a disaster or anything can be, he just wants it all. He wants everything. And it doesn't come out of a place of malice. It comes out of a place of hunger, desire, and experience, you know. So you can easily see people who follow Gebo being just people who are, you know, experience junkies or people who want to live life to the fullest. But it can also be that fullest taking you to dark, wild, horrible places. And Gebo really has all of those things going on in him, and I think he's just going to be a delight for so many tables because he's so wild.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about the Amaranthine is that even though they like have this concept, like a singular kind of philosophical concept at their heart, like because as you were saying, like it can be interpreted in different ways. They're not simple, even though they contain a simple concept. They are can be interpreted in different ways. They can be worshipped in different ways. One of like Kren is like the worshippers of Kren are bad guys in one adventure and good guys in another adventure. Like it's possible to have these gray areas, and Humblewood is like it's all about the gray areas, right? Like do you fight the bandits? Do you befriend the bandits? Like that is like how do you find empathy for and expand empathy. So I love that for the Amaranthine, and I love that for Gebo, that like, hey, you could just be having a good time, or uh-oh, things have gone a little bit too far, thanks to Gebo. So yeah, he's definitely one of my favorites of the new batch. We also... sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, that's the marvelous thing, right? Is the gray areas and the interpretation of the Amaranthines, right? Because they're a little more mysterious than other deities in other settings. And so it becomes not just a definition of what they are, but who your character is. Because when you walk up and you see, oh, that whole group is clearly devoted to Gebo. Well, what's your reaction there? Is your one to like, are you drawing your sword because this is going to go down, or you're like, let's grab a goblet of wine, and right, that immediately informs so much about how you see the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I love that invitation that the Amaranthines sort of, without directly saying it, they sort of invite you to interpret them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We got another question from Paul, which was, what are some notable organizations that devote themselves, whether in focus or worship, or in namesake, to a particular Amaranthine? Now, I don't think this was part of what you kind of covered, but like if you were designing kind of factions who are involved in Amaranthine, what sort of directions would you take that in?
I always liked the idea, jumping back to Gebo, I like
Mm-hmm.
the idea of there being these devotees that are not even necessarily excessive partiers, but people who are concerned that Gebo might be bored. And so they devote themselves to making sure that celebrations and festivals are as big and as grand as possible for fear of what Gebo might do if he gets bored.
Mm-hmm.
What terrible disasters might he bring? And so
Mm-hmm.
there's this organization of party planners,
Yeah.
of
Professional party people. Yeah.
experience crafters that are out there trying to save towns from Gebo's boredom.
Hmm.
But also, I love the idea. We got Erasu, the feline amaranthine of magic and
Hmm.
secrets, and the idea of these uh, devotees to the mystical arts that
Hmm.
are trying to uncover secret magics that she might sprinkle across the world through the forests and the hidden places. I love the idea of like secret lore hunters
Hmm.
in the moonlight.
Yeah,
That just
we that fits in really nicely with our Oath of Mysteries paladins. So like
yes.
maybe they're dedicated to Arethusa. And also a little tidbit from the kind of setting section that we've been working on is that the kind of head priestess of the moon in the Tangle Wilds is also the head of the spy agency because of this connection with secrets, and so she has these kind of two, like her public face and her hidden face, kind of the full moon and the new moon. It all kind of ties together, which is one of the things I really love about the religion section, and then drawing it into the setting and finding these kind of connections between like how are people interacting with the Amaranthine in the world, and like those questions that it just opens up and opens up. I just love that. It's one of my favorite things about kind of integrating religion into a setting.
So I'll answer this question even if it's not on your list,
Hmm.
which is what would my next Humblewood character be that I would
Oh,
play? And
yeah, please.
I would be someone in that spy agency. That
Hmm.
sounds just marvelous. Playing a feline
Kind of,
spy for mystical secrets. That
yeah,
sounds
yeah. Yeah, we want people to be able to like find those little pieces of inspiration in the setting. Go, oh, num 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 num. I'm gonna make a character around that. That's great. Um, and like, let me look at my big list of questions. Um, it's kind of pulling back and like looking more at like the designing and thinking about things. Like when you're looking to create pantheons, do you draw a lot of references from like real world religion or other fantasy religious structures? Both, neither? That's a question from Ali. Uh,
sure. So definitely, I try and be aware at the very least of a lot of mythology that's already out there, if only just to avoid any awkward
yes.
unintentional tie-ins.
Yes.
But definitely there is a lot of inspiration to be had there. There's a reason why these same archetypes keep on showing up through history in mythology, religion, into our fiction and so on. So it's nice to find one of those like resonant little tones that just keeps on playing in this melody of faith, if you will, and find your own sort of spin on it, your own little remix. So I do like to do that, but more than just looking for mythological arcs or entities to be inspired from. I think the way I like to approach religion is through viewpoints, through philosophy. I want to find a worldview that espouses something different, so that you when you take on a character, you're always trying to maybe play something a little bit different than yourself, right? And be something new. And the ability to offer people a chance to see the world through new eyes is what a wonderful opportunity for a writer or a creator, right? So if I can find a worldview that then build backwards into the entity that inspires that worldview, I think that's a great way to go about building a pantheon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because building a pantheon, especially if you're like building for a home game, I think it's one of those kind of classic building exercises, right? Like and I think it's something that a lot of people can really find a lot of fun with when you're kind of building for pantheon. Is there anything that you kind of taking into consideration for designing for Humblewood, which is obviously going to be shared and played by many people versus like designing for your own home games?
I mean, there's certainly things that I did for Humblewood that I wouldn't necessarily bring stuff that I do for my home game into there, right? Like I'm not going to take. I won't just suddenly be like, I really love all the Mortal Kombat characters. What if they were a pantheon? I mean, that's wonderful, but certainly not translatable for this project. No, I think the first Humblewood book just has such a vibe to it. It has, when you read it, I find myself transported to like old folk tales, and like other books read very like factual encyclopedias, like this is this god, this is their domain, they live in a stone city with an obsidian tower that does 3d6 damage or whatever. It's very, this is what it is. Whereas Humblewood is more sort of like, let me sit down and I'm going to tell you a story about how the trees came to be. And, it's a story.
Yeah.
How much of it is real? How much of it you take to be literal meaning? And that has a very sort of a warm, fuzzy feeling to it that you can sort of take that and make it your own, your emotional connection to it. And so I want to try and create those experiences. I want you to read the Amaranthine that I wrote and wonder about them, like feel like you're around a campfire at night and think of them.
Yeah, like leaving the spaces for questions and the spaces for uncovering and discovery, like rather than just kind of like, and they're 6'2" and they like they throw firebolts, like all this stuff. Yeah, I really like that about the Amaranthine as well. And then mentioning storytelling, obviously we're bringing back the tales of the Amaranthine. Can you tell us a little bit about how you went about writing the kind of new tales, and also like including how you're bringing the pantheon from book 1 and mixing that in with book 2?
Yes. So there's an interesting thing, right? You look at older real world mythologies and how they all have these overlapping domains. Like, I mean, Greek mythology, there's probably about 10 different deities associated with the ocean, but like, so how are they different? What's going on there, right? And so the Amaranthine have a similar thing too, I find, because there's different folk that are not attached is the wrong word, but they have relationships.
It's like patrons. Yeah, we call it their patron. Yeah.
Yeah. And so some of them overlap. But I think in a situation where you're having those overlapping domains, it's an opportunity to really dive into the viewpoints, the philosophies there, right? Why is an Amaranthine of a sun different than the Amaranthine of the day.
Mm-hmm.
They're both similar but very different. But beyond the like technical difference of, you know, a day is a time and the sun is an orb, what is the philosophical difference then? And then moving off from that, these tales, I think, are not just an opportunity to show those differences, but an opportunity to show the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I love about the Amaranthines is you can see these personalities and like how they relate to each other. And I really wanted to expand on that as much as I could with the tales in space that I had. And so, like I mentioned earlier, we have some sisters, and having a tale to be able to explore a little bit of what that means to have sister Amaranthines of opposing domains.
Mm-hmm.
What is that relationship like? And to look at perhaps Argon the Unbroken, the sort of I can't remember what the goat people are called.
The servants. Yeah.
I failed you humble people. I failed you humble folk.
No, it's fine. There's lots of names.
There's lots of names.
There's a lot of names.
But yeah, so there's an Amaranthine that's all about, you know, to a certain extent, willpower and striving against challenges and obstacles. But that's also something that's really explored by Altus, right? So having an opportunity to have a tale where you can see those clash. What's the difference? How do they relate to each other? Mm-hmm. How do they differ? It's just a marvelous opportunity. Mm-hmm. And while you can't, within the space of the book, explore all of those relationships with all of the Amaranthines, though I could write 2 books probably just on the Amaranthines that I was assigned. I think the idea is once you read these tales and see them interacting, it'll inspire people at their own tables to have their own folk tales, right? Mm-hmm. Like if it's just a small little thing that adds some flavor like that, I want people to read and then think, well, let me tell you a tale of what happened when Gebo met Titan, and you know, add their own little.
Yeah, so a tete-a-tete. That would be a pretty interesting meeting, I think. Gebo versus Titan. Yeah. Or maybe Gebo and Titan having a great time together. Who knows? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the other things we wanted to really make sure came across in book 2 is that this isn't like a separate pantheon. It's not the Amaranthine in book 1 are completely separate from the Amaranthine in book 2. So having these kind of crossover points is really helpful, because this is all like they're all everywhere. It's just that certain people are more drawn to certain ones in certain places, and we are restricted by the fact that like the physical formation of a book. Then there's only as unfortunately we cannot have all the full Amaranthine of the entire world all in one go. But one of the other things we did is that not all of the new races in the book are planned to have an Amaranthine. The Sita, the parrot folk, they actually claim the Amaranthine of the Luma. And so they just represent like the same Amaranthine in a different way in their kind of region. So it's not that there is like one Amaranthine for every race, but like they can share, they can depict it differently. Maybe Titan is a giant panther in the Tangle Wilds. Like doesn't always have to be a bird. So that's something we're really playing with a lot in like the depictions of the Amaranthine, and making sure that it does feel that like this is across the whole world, because these are they do exist. That's kind of, I think, one of the, because that's always a question, right? In settings, it's like you can have gods walking around, or you can have them be completely abstract. And I think the Amaranthine kind of sits somewhere in between that people kind of recognize them in the world, and they can see occasionally a little bit of their influence in the world, but they're not coming around for tea and having a biscuit, or kind of upsetting the entire setting. So yeah, that's one of the fun things about them. Oh, and in fact, we have a question from Rico. Do the Illurans see the Amaranthines as cats? Um, as I said, I think maybe yes. That's my take on it. What do you think? Like, would you switch up like how they're portrayed in different places?
I think that I mean, I could certainly see within an organization that there would be a decided depiction. But I think also because it all has this sort of folktale feel to it, that it's very much sort of a hedge witch. You learn the stories from the crone who lived down the street, and this is the way that she told it to you. Or, you had a dream at your coming of age, and this is what was shown to you. And so it becomes a personal relationship. So you might talk with someone else who worships Ranzang or Altus or whoever, and you might be able to hold that conversation, but the image within yourself in those private moments could look entirely different. And I could see that being a point of consternation between characters, or perhaps an opportunity for them to like expand their understanding of the Amaranthine that they feel connected to. So I think it's really, I like to believe that there are characters out there who see the Amaranthine of their choice in a way that is not like how they see themselves or how anyone else sees that Amaranthine. I think some people see Titan as an octopus, and just that's just the way that they connect.
I can get down with Octopus Titan. That's a fun.
That just
That's
came
a
off
fun
the
mental
top there,
image.
but I'm like, that works. Octopus of the Night.
It's squid ink and arms and spooky stuff. Yeah, I
Far
can.
away in the land of death, there are tentacles.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Let me find another question. So, kind of switching tacks a bit. Are there any like other media, either RPGs or other things, where you think that like religion is treated in a really interesting way? Any kind of recommendations for people who are looking for great media that kind of covers these topics?
So many, so many. Such short time, so
No,
many.
we have lots of time. Go right ahead.
All right. Well, first off the top of my head, not necessarily first in rating, but first off the top of my head, it's a wonderful series of games called Nobilis, where you play deities.
Oh, okay.
You capture a certain part of the world, and that's your domain, and whether it expands and it explores the nature of like very particular types of, like, you could be the god of triangles, and that's just your entire thing is triangles of any. So at first you're just like, is that a geometric shape? But then it's like a love triangle, or like everything's triangles when you think about it, right? So the extent of your influence depends a lot. Or like deities of forgotten things, like I'm the god of Toro, Earth's second moon, that has been forgotten. So nobody worships me anymore, because nobody worships me, there is no Toro anymore. But and just the idea of looking at deities and their service to reality, and how they uphold their domain in service of existence, I thought was really neat. And what else? There's there's an older game. I don't know if it's gotten a reboot yet. If it hasn't, I'm sure that it will, because everything is being printed and reminted. There was a game called Immortal: The Invisible War, and it sort of took this idea of mythological and powerful beings sort of having forgotten themselves, and then remembering themselves and forgetting themselves, in sort of a cycle. And you're playing a character who's a modern person who's feeling connected to those ancient voices as you return to your immortal self. And the books were a bit of a mess, but as in terms of inspiration and like ideas, there's so much stuff to pull from there that I just found them a delight for when they came out, which is a bit ago. what else? Deity-wise, so many wonderful things. There's a new books coming out that I love from the folks who do City of Mist. They're doing a cyberpunk mythological game called Otherscape, where it sort of blends. Your character is a mix of like your mortal stuff and cyberpunk or futuristic stuff living in a dystopia, and mythological stuff. So maybe you're tied to a particular deity, maybe you're an avatar of that deity, maybe you're trying to be, and like the mix of all those three things together is just a marvelous exploration, built on top of just one of the best character systems I think out there right now. If you want to really delve into a character and its themes in some sort of arc.
That sounds fascinating. I immediately think, like, can you hack a god?
Like, yes, right? Don't you want to hack a god?
Like, that just sounds so fun.
That right now.
Yeah. Just bust it out. Start playing. Yeah, that's so great. And anything like outside of the realm of kind of games, any kind of like books or movies or anything that you feel kind of has an interesting take on like religion and its place in the world and its connection with people? Or are TTRPGs doing it best?
I mean, because of the wonderful resurgence we're in, TTRPGs are just this beautiful medium for sneaking the spiritual into people's heads without it being a sermon or some sort of cult, right? It's an opportunity for people to explore spiritual aspects of themselves without the tedium or the belittlement or the derision or whatnot. We don't allow ourselves as a society the sort of space we once did to be open to the unknown or connect with those voices, whether they are from external spirits or just aspects of our own mind. We're very shut into this idea of, I am this person, I have one mind, I listen to this, or these are the religions that are options available to me. And you set yourself into escaping into these TTRPGs, you have an opportunity to explore ideas without harsh judgment. Not that you're necessarily going to find the direct truth of the world in an Amaranthine per se, or in any of the other settings, but sometimes you find a clue there. Sometimes you find something that resonates with you about just something in the world.
Yeah, you kind of understand your own values better, like through play, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. If someone's like never really considered the like religious aspect of their TTRPG character, what would you say to them to try and encourage them to play around in this space?
Well, first, I think it's worthwhile asking yourself the question, why? Why haven't you did that? Because chances are the answer to whatever the question, whatever your answer is to that question, is going to be a big indicator for how to enter the space, right? Because chances are it's because you have a judgment or you've had an experience about religion in RPGs or just religion in general that has just informed your opinion that you don't want to make that choice. And definitely, if that's the way you feel, then probably don't.
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
If you're trying to push past that because you feel like there's something there, then that answer is also very important. It's sometimes I find it's really either one of two things. Find the thing that like just feels or there's a fear there, or just you immediately have a reaction, and just lean all the way into that. Lean all the way into that. If you have a nice friendly table, try it out. Be a zealot and see what that feels like just for a moment. And if it doesn't work out, then there's plenty of ways a good table can help you out of that situation. Or then the other thing is find the reticence there, the fear about, well, I don't want to play that because then people will be on me about that, or like, no one wants me to be the paladin there, the goody two shoes or whatever. uh, I think there's a great fear amongst people who don't play characters with faith, is that they're going to be ridiculed for believing in something, because that's far too prevalent, I think, in society, is that anyone who feels passionately about any particular thing is just opening themselves up to the people who don't believe anything, who just want to, it takes, what is the saying? It takes a god to make a flower, and it takes a child to stomp it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, find a friendly space, and then find the thing that you love, and nurture it in the game. This got really more philosophical than I expected.
Hey,
But
we're talking deep stuff here on the stream tonight. And
we're going to unlock the secrets tonight.
Yeah, it's all
lucky.
here.
You subscribed. You're a patron. We're going to tell you the meaning of life.
Well, my piece of practical advice for playing religious characters is you don't have to be a cleric or a paladin to like engage with this stuff in your character. It's like, this is part of the world. You don't have to be drawing your kind of your in-game power from your religious connection. It can just be something that is an aspect of your character's life. Probably the most religious character I've ever played is a ranger, and had a lot of fun with her, because it's just like. She looks to the sky and says, "What will the traveler do?" and, makes bad choices. So, yeah.
That reminds me of a way that I like to approach some characters as well, that might be helpful for people trying to explore characters with faith, is that it's what would make you feel better? What would make your character feel better? So much of what happens at RPG tables, people feel a little bit of anxiety about, what if this goes wrong? What if I roll badly? What if I don't do the thing right? And I like to approach it with well, what if someone had your back? What if you knew that because of what you believe, someone had your back no matter what happens? And explore what it's like to feel that. If you're a ranger and you feel a connection to Sylvanas or to
whoever, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a wonderful feeling? Wouldn't that feel so free to be able to truly commit to whatever it is that you wanted, knowing that you weren't on your own in a vast multiverse? And I think that's a wonderful way to approach it.
Yeah, just like adding an extra dimension to play with, and it is, and we kind of have to remember it is play, and I think it's one of the great things about it, is actually getting to play with these topics, because you do just get to put things together that maybe you wouldn't in your everyday life.
Well, or even discuss it in everyday life, right? You don't really have venues unless you're part of a particular religion who has that sort of discussion, and there are a few to have those sorts of discussions that are that open anyway. So play offers a very unique space for trying out different things. We need more spaces where we can try out things that might not be true, but what if they were? How would it feel if things were like that or like this?
Yeah, it's great. Paul in the comments says that one of the player in their group is a predator warlock of Kren, and another is a Vulpin paladin of Ardea who tried to appeal to Gaspard and rejected Kren. So things are definitely going to get interesting, Paul. That sounds like a really fun time.
Yeah. That sounds like some exciting conversations. Heated conversations.
The fantastic moment as a GM where your players just have a debate. That's one of my favorite things to happen. Okie dokie. Let me just check my big list of questions.
Can I just
Oh yeah,
going off
please.
of that? It's just on the subject of differing philosophies. I had a game that I was running. It was a game of modern mages, and it had come to a point where the only solution to what they were going through was that they had to steal a space shuttle to get to the moon.
As you do, yes.
As you do, right? And the particular collection of personalities, their viewpoints on the world, and what it would mean to like actually try and commit a robbery of that scale, and the impact it would have on people, that their beliefs, not necessarily tied to any deity, but their beliefs on the subject, made them choose a path of, rather than trying to steal a rocket from NASA, they risked their lives and their entire histories to alter the timeline and do some time travel type magic to change things in the past so that they had a private space agency in the present, rather than
that's some lateral thinking. Yeah,
that's very lateral thinking, right? But all driven by belief, right? So when you commit to a belief in a character, it opens up these paths in the stories that just make things sing.
Yeah. We've got a question from Rico, a little bit more specific. I'm not quite sure how we're going to answer this one. How many gods are there on Eviden? I don't know. It would be my answer. I don't know that we know. We can definitely say we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 new gods, Amaranthine in Humblewood too. But like, yeah, I don't know. Like, this is a discussion that we haven't really had. Because we like, hopefully if we're planning Humblewood 3, Humblewood 4, we still want religion to be a part of like the world going forward, and obviously there'll be new races, there'll be new places, there'll be new ways of interacting with the Amaranthine. But like, what do you think about like how one can expand a pantheon, like with the practicalities of this being a kind of over time release of books, versus like, here's everything about the world all in one go? Do you have any thoughts about that at all?
I do. I have great thoughts, and here you don't even need to look that far. Just look at classical mythology and the cycles of things, right? You know, titans, then gods, then whatever, whatnot, and the movement of who's in ascension and who's in decline, right? I think it's a matter of which ones are more relevant in the world at that moment, right? If it is a time of despair and rot, then some Amaranthines are going to be. If it's a time of great prosperity and verdant, cultivation, then others are going to rise. And then maybe some just aren't around as much, or maybe they go to the secret place. Maybe there's only ever 33 Amaranthines in the world, and the others go to the secret realm that we don't discuss until Hubble Book 5.
Yeah.
And every few years, 3 come out and 3 go back in, and so there's
they do a dance. It's kind of the dance of the Amaranthine.
Some sort of natural cycle, right? Because Humblewood just feels so much like, it's very much designed to feel like an ecosystem, right? And I think that pulling that out the deity level, there's an ecosystem there as well of like growth and decay and like surgence, resurgence, hibernate, awaken.
The great rhythm, if you would.
If I was going to put a name to it.
If you're going to put a name to it, yeah. So yeah, and like that's also kind of maybe one interpretation of the Amaranthine, is that like they are it's like, are they protectors of the great rhythm, or are they expressions of the great rhythm? Like maybe both. Who knows? Like maybe, I don't know that that's a question we want to like necessarily answer, but it's definitely one we can raise. Because yeah, like those kind of unknowns of like, what does this mean for like this character at this time, versus like what does this mean for the world, are kind of fun questions to play with.
Do entities enact on the universe, or do universes,
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
their fate or is their choice, that sort of thing?
One of the kind of thread lines that we have going through Humblewood 2 is the Fizzers. So this kind of ancient group of scientists who were doing some maybe not so great stuff, like around 1,600 years ago, and having, obviously we have Gesme, the Amaranthine of innovation, who would have been, and like and the Fizzers are very uh, like connected to like the Amaranthine, because we very much put them in a kind of early science, like this is discovering what the Amaranthine mean through science, like how do we connect with them better, kind of poetry and science and magic are all one for them, and then it's like having Gesme as this very prominent figure at the time of the height of the Fizzers, and then now with some maybe some returning Fizzers, who knows? And like, is that Gesme acting on the world, and like her talon coming down and kind of poking people and saying, "Get inspired, make some cool gadgets," or is it that people through their inspiration are drawing her attention? Like that's something that I really want to play with in the adventure, because I think it's really fun to like bring in these kind of cosmic beings into the things that are going on in the world at the time.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing that you like to play with too, right? Is not even just whether it is the Amaranthine pushing or the person genuinely feeling a thing. On sort of the third side of the coin, is someone using an Amaranthine as an excuse
Hmm.
to indulge in
Their interest, yeah,
ideology,
their interests, yeah.
or are they genuinely feeling the pull of something beyond themselves?
Hmm.
And how do you prove that?
Yeah, I mean, we have in the Wind Touched, one of the kind of the adventure hook is around the Inquisitors of Gesme, who are a slightly shady organization, and they're very sort of dogmatic, and you sort of imagine Gesme as this very kind of open and like, oh, innovation and these things, but they're very locked down and concerning, and like, yeah, are they using Gesme's name to kind of exert power over people? Who knows? Maybe a little bit. They're one of my favorite little factions. They just show up at the beginning of the adventure, and they're little creepy, and they're great. And I love that you can fit both of those things in under the wings of this one Amaranthine. Um, we we did get another question from Rico. Is Heckner's plane on the Great Rhythm? I will say no comment on that at the moment, but that's just because there's a clown behind me that's just off screen.
I mean, if you're not planning to take your Humblewood characters through Heckna, start thinking about it, I would say.
Yeah, there's definitely some crossovers there. So they're the Great Rhythm is kind of a connective tissue between a lot of our different worlds that we play with. Uh, so okay. So we're kind of coming towards the end of the stream. Anything you'd like to chat about before we start to wrap things up?
Gosh, I sort of want to have an in-depth conversation about Heckna now, but I don't think we have time for that.
Alas, the clown just out of sight is glaring at me.
I Gosh, I think we've covered a lot of the good stuff about religion and role-playing games and the nature of play that I really wanted to talk about. I'm looking forward. If people are enjoying Big Bads, I'll be writing a Big Bad. So if my word talkings sound good here, maybe they look good in the
Yes,
writings.
you should definitely check out also The Never King,
Yes.
which is a fantastic big bad that Serena wrote, and was one of the big reasons we wanted to bring you on to this project, because it had this like epic mythic feeling, and we were like, okay, we know who we want to get here.
Not a small bad. Never King is not a small bad.
No, very big.
Not a mid-range bad.
Capital B, capital I, capital G, big bad. Yeah, and where can people find you? What are you up to?
I'm doing a lot of independent projects right now that I can't there's no Kickstarter page to throw you all to right at the moment. If any of you are traveling to Gen Con, though, I'll be running a variety of mega games there, so you may see me around orchestrating some 50 to 100 person fusion hybrid games. That'll be a lot of fun.
That
you might
sounds
see me
fantastic.
poke around the Hit Point Press booth a little bit too.
Yeah, please go say hey to Hit Point Press and to Serena at Gen Con if you're in attendance. And thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Serena, for chatting all about the Amaranthines with us. It's been really fun.
My pleasure.
Getting to pick your brain about like deep topics has been great. So. And thank you to everyone for joining us here on the stream tonight. And I guess we're gonna wave goodbye.